Nugent states that Pikes was not posing a threat. He was simply refusing to get up quickly enough to satisfy Officer Nugent. That's what Nugent himself wrote in his own report of the incident.
And that may be, but we've got what? You said yourself we had other officers there. We've got an autopsy report. You got a complete investigation by the state police. All this has got to be taken into effect. You know, we've got to look at everything, not just one thing. There again, everybody wants to make an assumption of what happened, and bottom line is we weren't there. We don't know. We have to rely on what the information, all the information is gathered.
Lieutenant Charles Curry, why did the police chief say that Baron Pikes was high on PCP and crack at the time of his death, the coroner finding that was not true?
You said the chief of police said that?
Yes.
No, the chief of police did not say that. The officers that were dealing with him said that he made the statement to them that he had ingested. Now, that's more than one officer made that statement. I don't know if he said it or not.
Howard Witt, you've been following this case.
Well, the chief was quoted in the local newspaper, the Wynn Parish Enterprise, as saying that that's what the report was. But regardless, that was the official version that was coming out of the police department, that leaving it, the assumption being that the guy was high on drugs when he wasn't.
The issue of stun guns being a form of torture that you mentioned, Howard Witt. We had a news headline recently saying the United Nations Committee Against Torture has determined the use of taser stun guns can be a form of torture and violate the UN Convention Against Torture. The committee said the stun guns cause extreme pain and, in some cases, death, as we've seen here. Howard Witt.
Well, you know, first of all, I want to make it clear, I'm not saying it's torture. That was what Dr. Michael Baden, the forensic pathologist, said about the case. The Taser International folks who I spoke to, that corporation based in Arizona, vigorously deny that their weapon is dangerous, and certainly would deny, I think, that it is used for torture. But what's interesting is they point to dozens of medical studies which they say proves the safety of these devices, but very few of those studies, all but a handful, never looked at the situation where a suspect is repeatedly tasered over a concentrated period of time. And in fact, on their own written warning, which they give to police departments accompanying this device, they warn against multiple uses of this taser against the suspect. And the United States Justice Department just recently finished a study about a month ago trying to assess the safety of these devices. And the Justice Department also said that the safety of these devices regarding multiple applications against the suspect is unknown.
Howard, with the final tasering applied directly to Baron Pikes' heart?
That's what the coroner said, and the coroner said that, in fact, the last two taser shocks were delivered after Pikes was unconscious and unresponsive, and in fact, one of the policemen at the scene wrote in his report that Pikes was foaming at the mouth at that point, and what medical experts say is that is a sign of acute respiratory distress. That foaming at the mouth is actually lung surfactant that comes out when you are basically struggling to breathe.
Lieutenant Charles Curry, is there a review of the use of the taser gun in your department now?
It is currently under review, yes.
And as we wrap up, Kayshawn Collins, stepmother of Baron Pikes, your thoughts as you listen to this conversation. It's now been almost half a year, or a little over, that your son has been dead.
Well, I feel like he was tortured. And like I said earlier, I just want justice to be done. I just want things to be done in the right way, because I really feel like he was tortured. And it hurts every night for me to have to go to sleep and listen for him to have to beg for his life. So I was told, I wasn't there, I don't know, but I was told that he was asking, please don't tase, you know, and that hurts, that thought just stays in my mind every night that I, you know, go to sleep. Me and his grandmother, the lady that raised him, had to leave the house where they were living, and she had to come stay with me because she couldn't go back to that house anymore.
Finally, Lieutenant Charles Curry, the lawyer for Scott Nugent, the police officer who tased Baron Pikes, said that he did the right thing, that the officer, Scott Nugent, had a choice of beating him or tasing him, and he thought he made the right choice. Your comment?
Well, you'd have to ask Mr. Terrell that. He represents Scott, and he speaks for Scott.
And finally, Howard Witt, the racial atmosphere in Winfield right now.
Well, I would say that it's really going to depend on what happens with this case. I think that the black community there is watching closely to see whether or not there are charges brought in the case. If there are not charges brought, I think you're looking at a potentially, explosive situation there. But I think that people are, basically waiting and waiting to see how the justice system proceeds down there.
Howard Witt, Southwest Bureau Chief of the Chicago Tribune. He's based in Houston, Texas, was the first to do a national piece on this story, nominated for the Pulitzer Prize for national reporting on his wide-ranging examination of racial issues in America. Howard Witt joining us from Chicago, where the Unity Conference is taking place right now, the largest gathering of journalists in the United States. We've also been joined by Lieutenant Charles Curry, spokesperson for the Winfield Police Department in Louisiana, and Kayshawn Collins, the stepmother of Baron Pikes, killed last January, 21-year-old African-American man in Winfield, and ironically, strangely, the first cousin of Michael Bell, the lead defendant in the case of the Jena 6.